Okay, so before you look at your text, just to tell you the fact that this week's Parsha is the laws of a Nazir. In brief, in one paragraph, okay, listen up, others not going to know what's flying here. So a Nazir is someone who, male or female for that matter, who takes a vow of Nazirus. The word Nazirus means to separate. So for the minimum is 30 days, but there's also a concept of a lifetime Nazirus, like Shmuel and like Shimshon. And the laws of a Nazir is that he may not shave his hair, he may not drink wine or any component of the grapes, and like a kohen gadol, not just a kohen, he may not become ritually impure, like a kohen gadol. So it's a minimum of 30 days or a lifetime or as many years as the person takes upon himself such a vow. And that's what's discussed in this week's parsha. So I want you to look at the first quote. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to have to send it to you. Okay, the first quote's a Mishnah. I'll send the second quote in a minute. Oh, no, that's good. No, we've got the right things here. Yeah. So the Mishnah says that Shmuel, right? Shmuel is the son of Chana. We tell the story of his birth in the Haftarah of Rosh Hashanah. So the Mishnah Rabbi Neuroi says, so this is Rabbi Meir, Neuroi Oir, Dichtigkeit. Some say it's Rabbi Meir. So he was a Nazir. Shenemar, as it says, we're quoting here, Chana, his mother. She said, Umoire lo yale al roishay. This word moire is an unusual word, will not go up on his head. And so he concludes, what does this word moire mean? It means a razor. He's not going to cut his hair. Where do we see that? Because Nema b'Shimshon or moire. Shimshon was a Nazir. It says that word that he cannot cut his hair. What's the word used that in quotations? The word moire. So when Chana said that a razor will not touch his head, she's saying, she's dedicating him to make him a Nazir, as the Mishnah goes on to say. So the commentaries are up in arms, because how could this be? First of all, number one, he's not born yet, she's saying. She's saying that the child that will be born to him will become a Nazir. The halacha is you cannot, there are no designations on something which is not in the world yet. Not born yet. So how can she dedicate him and make him a Nazir? It doesn't exist yet. That's number one. The bigger problem is the next quote. Next quote is also from Masechet Nazir earlier on. Ha'ish madir as b'noi ben Nazir vein ha'ish maderes as b'no ben Nazir. Only a father can make his child, the son, a Nazir, but a mother cannot. As the Gemara explains from the sources for that. But then, what's our question? How is Chana, the mother, making her son a Nazir, when the Mishnah says a mother cannot? So, the answer to the above, what I'm sharing with you is just the end of a very deep Nigel Halacha Sikha. This is the bottom line at the end, as we'll apply it to ourselves. There's two ways. So, Nazir, what's in general Naziris? Naziris is, again, abstention from engagement in worldly matters. Just explain, what's the hair got to do with it? The hair generally symbolizes, he doesn't cut his hair. Some people, long hair is a nice thing. But overall, getting the hair trimmed and so on, is the beauty of is grooming the body. Obviously not drinking wine. Obviously that's not engaging in life's pleasures. So there's two ways, there's two reasons, if you like, that would lead a person to the state of Naziris. One is a person takes these things upon himself because he sees he can't be like everybody else. he can't get too close to the world and what it has to offer because he doesn't currently have the strength to resist, and therefore he makes a fence in his life. It's in general Musar, it's the way of Musar. He brings here from his Sefer, Cheves Alavavis, the Shara that there were pious Jews who separated themselves 99 steps from permissible things in order, I'm quoting here, not to stumble in one gate, in one thing, 99 no's to prevent one mistaken yes. It says in Pirkei Avos, make a fence around the Torah. In many ways, that's what the Chachamim did. Well, much of rabbinic law is why it's really that prohibition we don't want you to do. But in order that you don't do that, we're stopping you here. Like a person makes a fence around a beautiful tree or a flower. You don't get close and ruin it. And the pasuk says, "Ushmartem es mishmarti," you shall guard my guardings. Says the Gemara, "Asu mishmeres mishmarti," make a guarding from my guarding. I say no, you put a no before that, so you don't get to this no. Even though those things we're prohibiting, the Torah permits, but we're doing that as a precaution not to get too close to transgression. So that's one motivation that sometimes is necessary, that a person takes upon himself, even though this is permissible, I'm not going there, I'm not doing this because it's too close to something prohibited that I may succumb to. That's one kind of naziris. But then there's a naziris, that's called precious. The person is taking this step to separate himself from the world. But then there's a naziris called kedusha. And Rabbi says this is a gishmak, more gishmak way. What's kedusha? What's the reason why he's not engaging these things? It's because he feels connected to something higher. It just doesn't talk to him. It's like he doesn't have an interest in this. Maybe we just say he didn't get a haircut because he looked in the mirror to see he needs a haircut. Doesn't even know he needs a haircut. He's in a higher world. They say here, like in have a l'chaim, you're going to be high. He's high. He doesn't need the l'chaim to be high. And in purity, he just doesn't go there. See the three things that define the Nazir. It's not appropriate for him as pasnish. It's pasnish. That's why. Not because he could. The first one is like, I want to go there, but I'm afraid I will. So boom, I'm going to make this line. Here is, the line is drawn there because he's just not attracted there. I want to read you a little story, one of my favorite stories here from Rabbi Tversky Olav Shalom. I very much, and if you can get this book, get it, generation to generation. It is a wonderful book. You and your wife should read. It tells his upbringing, his story. He was a psychologist. I mean, he has hundreds of videos you can watch. Very warm, engaging man, very wise person. And the story, this book is very inspiring. So there's a section of being raised in my father's home. I want to read you the story. As a child, says Rabbi Tversky, I was somewhat of a chess prodigy and invariably triumphant when playing with men in the shul after davening. On Rosh Hashanah, one Rosh Hashanah, when I was 9 years old, a rabbi from Chicago guested at our home. And in the afternoon, when father was resting, he asked if I wished to play chess. I was surprised at this, being under the impression that playing chess in Rosh Hashanah was prohibited. But the rabbi's assurance that it was permissible was sufficient for me. He was a rabbi. He was a good player, but I eventually won. That evening, second night of Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah, I was told that father wished to see me in his study. And I came in, he was learning. And I stood there in silence, waiting for father to speak to me. I mean, just right there, what a relationship. This is not 100 years ago. After a few moments, he looked up from his Sfarim and he said quietly, Hast gespielt Schach in Rosh Hashanah? You play chess in Rosh Hashanah? I said, yes. Rabbi C, Chicago, I guess, said it was permissible. Father looked back to his Svarim, slowly shaking his head in the negative. The message was clear, obviously, al pidin, according to the dry letter of the law, it's permissible. It was correct according to the letter of the law, but not in the spirit of Rosh Hashanah to play chess. And I knew better than that. That's what this shaking says. Now he adds in brackets, when you admonish someone, you should have known better. That's an insult because you're telling the person you're an ignoramus. But when you say you know better, that's not insulting. That's just pointing out an oversight and also a little compliment that you know better. So already this part of the story, it's all part of his theme as pasnished. It's just not appropriate. I'm just going to tell you, before I finish the story, which is really beautiful, and there was a chos of the Alter Rebbe that said he didn't sin because of gaiva, like his pasnished. He meant to say, I'm a chos of the Alter Rebbe, I should do this, I should go, I should say, it's pasnished. That's a much higher kind of Naziris, which we're getting back to our subject, but I wanted to finish the story. Now listen to this part. As I had not been dismissed, I remained standing in silence, where father continued his reading. Incredible derech eretz. Father didn't say, okay, you can go. See, I stood standing. The remorse during these few minutes was most profound. There had not been any beating or even any shouting. Yet I resolved then and there that as long as I lived, I would not violate. Never again, as long as I lived, would I violate the spirit of Yom Tov, even with something that Allah is permissible. In that silence, that's what this 9-year-old kid is resolving. Beautiful. But here's the end. After a few moments, father looked up, and there was a twinge of a smile accompanying the twinkle in his eye. But you did checkmate him, didn't you? So even, you're right, the little scene could not have been orchestrated more perfectly. I had done something wrong. I was held accountable for my behavior. I sincerely regretted for my misdeed, and this wiped the slate clean. It's now time for some positive stroking, my father's love, which also said, even when you're doing that, unconditional love, still have your back even as you were doing the wrong thing. There's so many layers to how beautiful this is. Okay, Shana Maisa. So that's the two ways to be a Nazir. You do me a favor, close the door if you don't mind, just behind you. In a way, it's like the pasuk says. We counted this. We learned about this before. Shema b'ni Musa Avicha. Listen to your father's teachings, and don't and do not forsake the first the Musa, the ethics of your father, and the teachings of your mother. Igeres Haramban. Yeah. So the first way we're describing now is like the father way, the discipline. The second way, becoming a Nazir, is more the inspiring way from within. That's Teiras Imech. Now we're going to answer the question about Shmuel. So the commentaries want to say that afterwards, the husband, when he was already there trying to find somewhere in the pasuk where Elkanah, her husband, made him a Nazir, but it's hard to see it in any of the psukim. So the Rebbe says this is what happened. Having said what we just did, we'll answer the story. She inspired him. He wasn't a halachic Nazir from her. First of all, she made that vow before he was born, and you can't make a vow about something that doesn't exist. Secondly, the halacha is a mother cannot. But what she brought him up in the spirit of Naziris, so that he naturally himself made that vow naturally later. That's the answer. Inspired by the mother, but then he did it. This is similar to the idea of a convert who converts and the child is already born. So the child is immersed in the mikveh and is brought up as a Jew and treated as a Jewish child. But then at 13, the expectation is the child's going to want to. Why? Because for himself or herself, because the child has been brought up in this spirit. So that answers why Shmuel was a Navi, bottom line, inspired by the mother Taka. But then what kind of Naziris was it? A Naziris that came because that's where he was holding in his life. He was naturally, that's the higher form of Naziris Kedusha, not precious. He did it because, inspired by the chinuch he got, that's what he wanted to be. And therefore it was a decision he made, and therefore it's a bona fide Naziris that he took upon himself. The Rebbe concludes here, this is also applicable in the way to Mekar of another Jew. I'll read it to you. We tried to Mekar of another Jew to Torah mitzvah, so he could say, the Jew could say, what do you want from me? I'm living in the big world, a different environment, and I've got to follow the ways of the world. In halacha, in business dealings, the Torah considers the way of minig atagrin, the way business is conducted by people in a particular locale, that becomes the halacha. This is all to say, what do you want from me? To disconnect? I'm part of the world. And even your Torah says, embraces, he's a scholarly person, this fellow. Even the Torah itself embraces the ways of the world in its own laws. You want me therefore to live disconnected? And after the words of the Rebbe, I should be careful in business from even a trace of hasagas gvul or theft, etc. Everybody's doing it this way, and that's how life is. So one way to approach him is, but this is the law, and you've got to do it, and everybody's obligated, and if you don't, you're going to face punishment in this world, the next world. It's one way to make out of a Jew, and some people inspired by that. Consequences. You don't keep Shabbos, you're going to burn in hell. Finish this world, the next world. That's one way. But the better, that's the first kind of Naziris. Like you said, why doesn't he do this? Because he's afraid of he's gonna do something wrong, and there'll be consequences, negative consequences. But the better way is, how do you make out of a Jew? Not by pointing out it, but if you do this, lift him, inspire him, so that he himself naturally will want to keep Shabbos and the Torah mitzvahs. Because the truth is, it's what you always wanted all along. All you're really doing is nurturing and revealing that desire within him. And that's the highest form of transcendence of Naziris. That's called Kedusha. And that was inspired by Chana for Shmuel.